Hello everyone. The topic that I want to talk about today is Java event handling. Java event handling is a mechanism to provide a way for the users to interact with the GUI components. Here is today's outline. Firstly, we describe the basic concept of the GUI interaction mechanism. Then we talk about the Java components for event handling and the event handling steps. Finally, we give a case study to explain the whole event handling process. For a graphical user interface, when the user interacts with the GUI components, for example, pressing a button, an event will be generated to trigger the execution of a program. After that, the GUI will be updated or some tasks are performed. For example, the streams in these two text fields are swapped. There are three components in the aforementioned GUI interaction mechanism, including event source, event, and event handler. Event source is a component that the user interacts with to generate an app event. For example, the button here is a kind of an event source. Event is a data structure or an object that carries the information about interaction. As for event handler, it is a method that performs a task in response to an event. Next, we will detail these three components for event handling. For event source, in Java, any GUI component can be used as the event source. In Java, GUI components are defined in AWT and the swing packages. AWT short for Abstract Window Toolkit. For example, these two GUI components are called JText fields in Java, which provides an area for the users to input text stream. This one is called the JButton, that is used to trigger the execution of a task when the user clicks with the mouse. Since Java is a purely object-oriented programming language, an object which carries the interaction information is in the form of an object of a class that extends AWT event class. Here shows the class diagrams of all Java AWT event classes. The objects of different event class carries different types of interaction information. For example, ActionEvent carries the reference to an object which is clicked. Mouse event, it carries the mouse coordinate or the status of mouse button. For item event, it carries the item selected by the user. In other words, the event type resulting from a GUI component depends on the way the user interacts with. For example, pressing the Z button will generate an action event object, but moving the mouse on Z button will generate a mouse event object. Furthermore, the information carried by an event object can be retrieved by invoking its member functions. For example, the mouse coordinate carried by the mouse event object can be read via its member function getX and getY. In response to an event, Java declares all methods for handling a specific event type in an interface called the listener. So, in Java, an event handler is thus an object of a class that implements the corresponding listener interface. For example, Java names the method for handling the action event as the actionPerformed, which takes the action event as its parameter. The method actionPerformed is thus encapsulated in an interface called the ActionListener. So the class you defined as the event handler has to implement the ActionListener, as the code shows you here. It is worth noting that in Java, the implementation of a listener interface means to define all event handling methods in that listener interface if it has more than one method. In Java, there are many listener interfaces that respectively declare the event handling methods in response to different event types. For example, ActionListener declares methods for action event, and the mouse listener declares the methods for mouse event. Item listener is for item event. After describing the three Java components for event handling, we next talk about the steps to write an event handling program. There are 4 steps in writing Java event handling program. The first step is to create a GUI, such as an example shown you below, and then determine which event you want to focus on. Here, the event type that we focus on is the action event, generated by the swap Z button when it is pressed. The second step is to declare the event handler class that implements the corresponding listener interface. Because we focus on action event, so we declare the myHandler class, which implements the action listener in response to action event. The next step is to create the event handler object and register it as event handler of GUI component. This is generally can be done by the following 2 instructions. The first instruction is to create an object of the myHandler class. And the second one is to register the created object as the event handler of the swap Z button by invoking its member function at the ActionListener. After that, you can imagine that there is a link from the swap Z button to the created object of myHandler class. The final step is to write the code to react to the actions and thus complete the event handling process. Next, we give a case study to further detail the Java event handling program. For case study called the stream swapping, we design a GUI consisting of 2 Z-text fields and 1 Z button. The functionality provided by this GUI is to swap the streams in the Z-text fields when the Z button is pressed, as the video shows you here. running the program to see the GUI window. Then typing the cat in the left J text field and the dog in the right one. By pressing the J button to swap name. In implementing the application for swapping streams, we firstly declare a string swap friend class in order to provide GUI window for user interaction. In Java, the easy way to do this is by extending JFrame class. Then we declare a class called the string swap friend test that defines the main method to create a string swap friend object and displays it by calling the setSize and the setVisible methods. In the following, we will talk about the 4 steps as mentioned before to complete the J-event handling program. In this application, the first step is to add 2 J-text fields and 1 J button to the GUI window. The code segment here declares the 3 variables, respectively for 2 J-text fields and 1 J button. The code in the green rectangles create and add 3 GUI components. The first 2 instructions create and add a J-text field, and the next 2 ones create and add another one. The last 2 ones create and add a J button. In this GUI, the event we focus on is the action event generated by the J button. Accordingly, the step 2 is to declare a class called the button handler that implements the ActionListener. This means that the button handler class has to define the action performed declared in the ActionListener interface. As mentioned, this method receives the action event as its parameter. In step 3, we create an object of button handler class and further registers it as the handler of JButton object. These 2 instructions, as we see before, do the object creation and the handler registration respectively. Finally, we write the code segment in the actionPerformed method to handle the action event when the J button is pressed. The idea of the code segment for string swapping is to get the string in the test1 J text field object, but set it to the test2 object, and similar for the other one. This completes the Java event handling programming. In this lecture, we detail the Java event handling concept and the 4 steps to write the Java event handling program. And thank you for your listening and have a nice day.